Meatball George, how are you today?
Hello, hello, brother Meatball John. How are you?
I'm
I
good.
am. I'm here in Omaha, John. It went down to 20 degrees last night. It's going down to 18 degrees tonight. It's chilly, but during the day, it was in the 40s. But the sun was shining bright. Remember living in Rochester? It was always dark, gray, cloudy. It's not like that here in Omaha. It's almost always sunny and bright, and you just feel different than you do in that Northeast. I love to be in a Northeast guy, but having sunshine every day, cold or warm, that sunshine makes a difference in the human spirit, and I'm glad to be here.
Oh, Meatball George talking about waxing poetic about the human spirit.
Yeah.
All right, very nice. Well, that's a nice way to start. George, we did we're going to do a game recap yet, but um, what do you think? What's your gut reaction as far as a wide receiver room at this point?
And how they're doing? All right. Well, I was really concerned. I felt like we weren't getting what we needed out of the slot position. Who was our slot receiver last year? What was his name?
Don Beasley.
Don Beasley. And we brought in Crowder. He got injured. We signed McKenzie to 2 more years, and he's had a few injury issues. So I really decided to do some research because we were going to do this tonight. And I'll tell you what I found is I found two things. The first one is I'm finding that Diggs is running like 40% of his plays are coming out of the slot.
Okay.
So Dorsey is definitely taking advantage of the slot position. And we're finding, how the Bills have two linebackers generally and a fifth, that nickel cornerback.
Right.
Where most of the other teams are playing three linebackers, and you're finding yourself with Diggs one-on-one against a linebacker. And that's turning into supplementing our running game. 3, 4, 5 yards a catch over the middle. He just makes a quick step. He jukes the linebacker out of his shoes. He makes a catch. He might pick a couple yards up after the catch, but that's a great running game. So they are utilizing the slot. And then I said, well, let me see what McKenzie's doing. Okay, and I ran the numbers. I got them on my screen right now. In this, McKenzie's best year was 2020. And in 2020, he had 30 receptions, 282 yards total, and 5 touchdowns. So not bad for a backup guy to the slot man.
Right.
Because he was just a backup to the guy. This year, after 6 games, he's got 17 receptions. He's got 162 yards. And he's got 3 touchdowns already. And if you extrapolate that out, that's 48 receptions for a slot receiver who has missed some time because of a concussion. And those touchdowns would extrapolate out to be between 8 and 9 touchdowns for the season. So 48 receptions, 8 or 9 touchdowns, and a total of 459 yards. Although that's a little light for a slot receiver, it's really not that bad, especially if it comes up with like 9 touchdowns. You can't pick on that. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, that's crappy. It's awful.
You think that's awful?
Yeah, it's horrible. Like, yeah, they lost a guy. They had a guy who was almost 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah, but what kind of touchdowns did he get?
He he got, I don't know, 6 or 7 touchdowns, but he was an integral part of the offense. Now they got just it's like a donut there. It's just a big hole.
Well, you know what? And the funny part is, and I hear what you're saying, he's not going to have the numbers that Cole Beasley had, although I think he's going to have the touchdowns. He's not going to have the numbers.
Well, he's not going to have them because he doesn't catch the ball. Now, whether that's because he's not being thrown away, he doesn't have many targets, right? Beasley got more targets.
Right.
Now, so it could be, this may not be a McKenzie issue.
No, because they're utilizing the slot position in a big time way, but they're utilizing it with
other players.
Diggs.
Yeah. Other players are in there.
Yeah.
So, and we've seen McKenzie even line up outside.
Mm-hmm.
He did that before. He still does it. If you put somebody out there, they've got to watch him. So he's effective as. But what I wouldn't mind seeing for McKenzie is more. Remember, they used to use him for those jet sweeps. They used to use him in more. I wouldn't mind seeing him be able to be a bigger part of the offense, even if it's in that role.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to utilize his speed some way. That's his claim to fame is his speed. He has no size and he doesn't have great hands. So I would like to see them be able to utilize his speed a little more, or quite frankly, have somebody else in that spot.
Yeah. So I looked at see what is Shakir doing. We're not seeing him in the game that often. So I looked it up, and right now Shakir has 6 receptions for the year. He's got 112 yards, and he's got a touchdown. So that extrapolates out to, about 17 receptions on the year and 3 touchdowns. So that's a heck of a lot of nothing.
That's a lot of nothing.
So then I said, well, let's go back and see what Gabe Davis did. Let me pull that up here. Okay. Unfortunately, I'm not smart enough to do multiple screens,
It's okay.
All right. So Gabe Davis so far. Here we go. Gabe Davis in his first year. Gabe Davis, 16 games played, 35 receptions. So Shakir, you're saying half of the receptions of Gabe Davis at this point.
Okay.
What I'm saying is on Gabe Davis's first year. When you look at Gabe Davis's rookie year, he had 35 receptions, and right now it's projected for Shakir to only have 17 receptions. So half. And Davis scored 7 touchdowns in his rookie season, and Shakir is scheduled to, right now he's projected to 3. So he's getting half the production that Gabe Davis did on his rookie season.
And he's not playing with the same. So when Gabe Davis was a rookie, you had Beasley and Brown.
Right.
Didn't that start right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now you have Diggs, and I think you would project out Davis currently would be that second wide receiver. His numbers are a little slanted because he's missed some time.
Right. Gabe Davis right now, he's got 14 receptions. Okay. So that extrapolates out to 40 receptions on the year. About half of where I thought he was going to be. Closer to where you thought he was going to be, as John, you continue to prove me wrong time. He did miss some time, but that doesn't matter. You must have taken that into account. His touchdowns right now, Gabe Davis has got 4. So that puts him at 11. And,
yeah,
that's not great.
Well, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
11 for a 17-game season when he's catching 2 a game in some of these games. So I'm thinking that Gabe Davis, he did miss a couple of games, so it's a little hard to tell. I still think he might end up with 15 or 16 touchdowns, and I think he'll be okay. But I'm not seeing it out the production out of McKenzie, and I'm concerned that they've decided to use Diggs in the slot position. Because why? Yeah, he's got an advantage going up against linebackers, but why wouldn't a guy like McKenzie's speed have just as big, if not a bigger, advantage over the linebackers?
Now, I think, is it possible it's because they need to put somebody there who will catch the ball?
Yeah. When will they unleash Shakir into that position? I think that's why they got Jamison Crowder. I think they felt that he was going to be a secure pass receiver. He's proven to do that over the number of years, but he's injured anyway. So all they got left is, are you going to put Hodgins in there? He's slow, but so far he catches the ball. But we needed a guy with yards after catch, and that's going to be Shakir. And until the Bills put him in that slot, I think that's going to hurt him.
Sure.
Because it takes away that deep threat that Diggs can give you. Now, Diggs seems to be content because he's getting a lot of receptions, a lot of targets, a lot of yards. And I don't know, maybe that helps in his bonus or something. I don't know. But I think Dorsey has confidence that he's going to catch the ball. He's going to get open enough to let Josh Allen get him the ball. And they need Josh Allen to get the ball out quickly because their offensive line, although improved over what it's been the last few years, it's not great.
No. And I don't know that it's really improved, but I hear
Okay.
It made attempts at improving. I understand. But,
and in the past, Josh Allen was running around buying time for the wide receivers to get, and he was pointing, go deep, right? How many times we see him go run? I'll throw it, you go get it. But he needs to be able to get rid of that ball quickly. He needs that option. And so they're using Diggs, their wide out as a slot guy to give Josh Allen that option, because they're not finding that James Cook is going to be out there doing. He hasn't done anything. He should be able to come out of the backfield and do that. And Shakir. So either we made two lousy draft picks, or they're just not ready yet.
Yeah, could be not ready.
And if that's the case, you're talking about Diggs limping into the playoffs as an exhausted wide receiver, right? I'm glad he's getting that break now. But what about after 6 more games when they've got 12 games under their belt? They don't have another break.
All right. So I know that we were thinking about maybe doing going over some trade scenarios next week, during what about, have you given much thought to the talk about Christian McCaffrey coming to Buffalo?
Well, I haven't heard anything else about it. I do think that McCaffrey right now, as a veteran, would give Josh Allen the ability to dump off that pass, and maybe even more confident second running back, if you will, to Singletary. McCaffrey would not have to come in here and be and touch the ball 35, 40 times a game.
Right.
You know what I mean? If he touched the ball 15 times and there were meaningful touches, that could make a huge difference for the Bills. And I really like the idea of McCaffrey better than I do Odell Beckham Jr. But I'll tell you what scares me about Odell Beckham Jr., that he could sign with the Kansas City Chiefs. And we saw that game this week, and Kansas City did not have a deep threat. And with the cornerback injuries and the safety injuries in the Bills secondary, a deep threat like OBJ might have made the difference for a Kansas City win.
Yeah, that would be another threat that, like you said, the Bills didn't have to deal with as much. as much. They didn't have to deal with Tariq Hill, certainly. And right now, nobody has stepped up for so much for Kansas City for that role. All right. But your vision is kind of McCafferty would be alongside or sharing time, if you will, with our current running back.
Singletary.
Yeah. For some reason, I wanted to say Sanders. Yeah, Devin Singletary. Yeah, and I hear you. All right, so
The guy's only 26 years old. And if you can keep him fresh and off the injury reserve list, that could be a huge, and I'm not going to pick on James Cook yet. He's a rookie. You know what I mean? He's a rookie. We don't know what he's going to become or not become. But to be able to get a player the quality of McCafferty, I think would give Josh Allen that quick pass dump off, and he wouldn't have to use maybe Diggs in the slot. Yeah, he could put another slot receiver in there and get Diggs back on the outside.
I hear you. I would like to see them bring in McCaffrey as well, actually. But I would like to see them bring in a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're missing one.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've thought that all season, even preseason.
Yeah, I think they're missing.
And I think we talked about that before the draft. We thought they're going to go for a wide receiver in the first round, and they didn't.
Nope, they did not.
But they needed we've talked about it for a number of years. They were doing 2 defensive ends back to back, and another year they did 2 something else back to back, 2 tackles back to back, and they went into this year needing a number of positions, and certainly they had to attack that. They had to attack that cornerback with Trey White out, but I think that the Bills put themselves in that position. I think they put themselves in that position, and they missed out on some of these other wide receiver potentials that they could have had if maybe they would have drafted a cornerback in a previous year instead of back-to-back tackles.
Right. So, I think we pretty much hit this. We've killed this one as far as we could keep going on and on about beating a dead horse. What they chose to do is what they did.
Right.
What we would have liked to see them done. So moving forward, the trading deadline will be here in just a week or two, or I think it's 2 weeks.
Okay.
So if they're gonna make a move, it would be interesting to see if Kansas City does bring someone in. It would be interesting to see if that prompts the Bills to feel that they have to.
Well, let me tell you something. Here's something that I heard today, and you tell me what you think of this. And this has to do with Von Miller. And Von Miller has been touting right along, O.J. Beckham is coming to Buffalo.
Right.
OBJ is coming to Buffalo. OBJ is coming to Buffalo. And then I saw on Good Morning Football, I think it was, where they speculated, OBJ and Von Miller are good friends.
Yes, they are.
And, it's possible that Von Miller is putting that rumor out there to try and get the Rams to up the offer that they gave to OBJ.
Okay.
Like maybe OBJ isn't coming to Buffalo, but Von Miller's trying to put that idea out there like he is, and then it's going to twist the Rams' arms. What if Von Miller doesn't care who puts that offer out there, and he's just trying to help his buddy out to get a higher contract, and he gets that higher contract with Kansas City because of Von Miller? Then I got to sit there, John, and say, he's not helping his own team, Von Miller. he'd be hurting our team by trying to help his friend get a higher contract. And I don't know if I want him around if that's the case.
Well, what he's doing, if he were doing that,
Mhm.
and Good Morning Football, they're kind of a bunch of oafs.
Yes, they are. They're like doofs. Yeah.
Kind of a bunch of oafs. So I don't know that this may have been just wild speculation. It could be very much like radio folks, just something to talk about.
Mhm.
But with that said, he wouldn't if he helps his buddy get a bigger contract. He's not hurting the Bills.
Well,
The Bills have
if he gets them to go to Kansas City and we lose to them in the playoffs because of it.
He isn't getting him to go to Kansas City. Helping him get a bigger contract, there's 32 teams and they all have an equal chance.
Well, yeah, but there's only a few that number one could afford it, number two that need it. And the Kansas City Chiefs need it. And you sent me a thing today where they just reworked Travis Kelce's contract to open money up, right? What do you think they were opening money up for?
Well,
maybe not OBJ, but maybe OBJ.
Again, if whatever team signs him has to pay more because there was competition for him, that still doesn't stop the Bills from signing him. Nor does it string him into a particular team. It just makes the market better for him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a friend should do. It has nothing to do, he's not favoring the Bills or hurting the Bills. Bills could sign him, Bills could not sign him. Bills could be in that competition for him, they could not.
All right.
He has no control over that.
With that settled right now, here's something I heard yesterday or today by, is it Nick Wright? Is he the guy on ESPN of NFL or whatever? He hates the Bills.
Yeah. He loves Kansas City for sure.
Loves Kansas City. And he came out, I saw it today, so I don't know if it was out yesterday or today, but I saw it today where he came out and I watched him and he said that the Bills, that Kansas City the Kansas City defense were giving up more points to other teams, even though they may have beat him. Like they gave up 29 points to the Raiders. They gave 31 points to Tampa Bay, who isn't playing well. The Raiders aren't playing. And he listed all the teams. And then he said, the Bills only scored 20 points against Kansas City's defense. So the Bills' offense is lousy.
Oh.
Not as good as other teams because they couldn't score as many points off of Kansas City as other teams were scoring off of Kansas City. And I thought, that's got to be the dumbest thing I think I ever heard.
Good.
I mean, can you believe that's how he was defending his team? Yeah. Even though they lost, they held the Bills to less points than other teams.
So when Kansas City plays the Raiders or what, those teams run up and down the field and score lots of points.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have a problem with that.
No,
that's not an issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's a benefit. That's one of their strengths.
Yeah. and I watched the game, and he's right. Their defense were able to pressure Josh Allen a lot more than they seem to be able to pressure some of these other teams. But maybe they were, they're different type of defenses set for other teams. I don't know. I don't want to just sit here and just support the Bills, but I think it was the dumbest thing I ever heard. And he argued that, last year the Kansas City scored 20 points against the Bills in the regular season, and they had Tyreek Hill. And this year they scored 20 points against the Bills, and they don't have Tyreek Hill. So they're just as good this year as they were last year, and they don't have Tyreek Hill. So they're just as good as they were, so he's not worried about the playoffs.
as long as they got Mahomes, they got a shot.
Yeah, he's a
As
special player.
long as they
There's
got, and they're figuring out how best to play without Tyreek Hill.
Mhm.
There's going to be some good days. There's going to be some days where you feel like you missed him more, and
Mhm.
that's over the course of 17 games, they'll probably come up with their best offense, whatever that is. Um, as long as they've got Mahomes, they still got Kelsey. He was a factor in this game. So yeah, they did seem to go the path of we're going to have maybe multiple guys try to do a bunch of different things out there. It's kind of like throwing spaghetti against the wall. You see what hits, see what sticks.
Mhm.
By the end of the season, maybe they'll have themselves a dynamic offense that's hard to stop. But as long as they got Mahomes, they've got a shot. So
I heard another one of these guys that are supporters of Kansas City's going, I'd rather have 10 Juju Smith-Schusters than one Tyreek Hill. You got to be nuts. Why I would take Tyreek Hill in a heartbeat over 10 Juju Smiths. What would you do with 10 Juju Smith-Schusters anyway? You can't play them all. So
I don't know. Yeah.
why not get Tyreek Hill? I mean, it's just the stupidest thing I think I ever heard.
Yeah, I hear you. The compensating, right? The compensation. Yeah, yeah. It's like the guy with the really nice sports car and a small dick.
All
And,
right, that's one way to put it.
and let's just say Kansas City's got that Apple Red sports car out on the driveway right now.
Mhm.
Uh, so we'll see. We'll see if they feel like they still need that at the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from the Chiefs. I think they're playing better so far this year than I thought they would play. They have been able to compensate for not having um, Tyreek Hill by putting together 12, 13, 14, 15 play drives. I didn't think they'd be able to do it against the Bills, but they did. They did it a couple of times. And the one thing about the Bills, their defense is good enough. You just got to make one mistake. And they made one mistake twice. And that led to interceptions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that really was the difference in the game. Kansas City's defense, although they could put pressure on the Bills were good enough to find times where they could compensate for their pressure coming. And Josh Allen made some incredible plays.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the difference between the game. And we'll see what happens if it gets to the playoffs. I can't remember who Kansas City was playing this week. I don't know if you remember, John.
Nope. I haven't really looked at it.
But I remember thinking, Kansas City's, Arizona. No, not Arizona. San Francisco. They're playing San Francisco on the road. And San Francisco's got a pretty good defense too. And they got Deebo Samuels. I think this is going to be a tough game for Kansas City. So we'll see. If they go 3-3, they still can go on a run. But if they go 3-3 and they're 3 games down behind the Bills, or 2.5 after this week because the Bills are off, that'll make a big difference.
Sure.
We might end up facing them in the first round of the playoffs or the second round.
Oh, okay. Well, their chances of not winning their division, they're in really good spot right now as far as winning their division. They're up against a couple of teams that can't score.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it hard for That makes it hard for them to not win.
John, what is this deal with this kid Zappy in New England? All of a sudden, this kid is coming out of nowhere. Went to Western Kentucky or something. And he threw for over 300 yards this week and 2 or 3 touchdowns. And New England, all of a sudden, they're back in the race. I thought they were dead and buried. They were going to be last in the AFC East, but with Tua's injury, New England is going to challenge the Jets. I mean, they're playing well with this kid Zappy.
It's a small sample size.
Mm-hmm.
When future defensive coordinators get to see this kid on tape, they'll pick him apart. He also didn't he go against the Commanders, Washington?
That sounds right.
Yeah. I think maybe one of the problems that we're having with the NFL this year is there aren't a lot of good defenses.
Mhm.
You know, and the ones that are stuck behind awful offenses.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking mostly Denver. They really have a good defense there.
Yeah.
But boy, the offense can't do a damn thing. The San Diego, or it's no longer San Diego, the Charger defense, I think is pretty good. But again, offense can't get going.
Mhm.
You know, so
Not like they don't have any weapons. They do.
it's just that's a stranger. Yeah, I don't know. Not watching their games, I can't really tell you what the hell is going on there.
Yeah, I think Kansas City has some luck going with them this year. The division they're in. You know, the Bills are going to have what 11 more games to play.
Mhm.
5 of them are within their own division. 2 New England, 2 Jets, and 1 Miami. So they're almost 50-50 in the division and outside of the division. And outside the division, we know one game is Green Bay because that's where they're the first one they play. And I know that what maybe the second and last game of the year it's Cincinnati. So they got 2 good teams they have to play. And you know, do you think the Bills can sweep their division the rest of the way and win 5 games right there?
Maybe.
If they do that, that would give them 10 wins. I think they're good enough to beat the Packers. That gives them 11 wins. I think they're good enough to beat Cincinnati. That's 12 wins. And the other 3 teams, I don't remember who they are off the top of my head.
Esther Buffer.
Pardon?
Esther Buffer. In case they have a slip, they could still.
Yeah.
So, all right. Are you amending? So I don't remember. Did you have a 12-win season for them? Your prediction was that a 12-win season, 13-win season?
You know, I will have to go back and see. I think it was more than 12. I think it was 13, if not 14.
Okay. Are you amending that yet? Right now, you're not amending that, right? They're 5-1.
No, and they're battling through injury after injury, and I still think they're in good shape. I'm just hoping that when they get into the playoff time period and it really matters, that we got our team together.
Right. I hear you.
Some of these backup players like Hamlin and what's his name? That doesn't matter, but the backup cornerbacks and the
like Bedford, Elam.
Yeah, you know, they're not playing to where we really need them to be against good teams in the playoffs.
Okay.
They're playing good enough to beat some of the teams in the NFL, but not necessarily a string of playoff teams. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to say before we go?
No, I think I've run out of air. I said everything I want to say.
All right. Meatball George, we'll see you. We'll see you later in the week.
All right. Thank you. Good to see you there, Brother John.
All right. Bye, everyone.